we have been looking at the theme, the architecture of the influential woman, because the major objective of this particular Ladies Institute is to raise women who are not just going to be women, but women who can become influential voices, influential forces in their generation, in their industry, in, in their nations, and be major contributors to what God has committed or entrusted into their hands. And like I said, this particular program is literally broken into two major sections. Number one is what I call the internal architecture. So we have been focusing a lot on the internal person you must be, and you must consistently be if you are going to be that woman of influence. And from today, I will start phasing out from the internal architecture and begin to talk about the external architecture that must be in your life. So as you begin to go through this program, you need to make sure that as you are measuring your transformation, as you are measuring your growth, begin to check, how is my internal architecture and how is my external architecture? Right? Like I always say, if you're going to be anything in life, there are two systems you must create around you: the internal system and the external system. For example, I have an internal system that I go through on a daily basis to make sure that I am refining myself, I am studying, I'm researching, I am refining ideas and strategies and all of that. Now, I have a system of presenting ideas. I have a public speaking system. I have a way to structure how I'm going to articulate that you see only in the public, right? So you cannot become incredible. You cannot become a force. You cannot become a voice if you don't have two major systems in your life. So, and that's why many people get frustrated. You see many people, they're expecting or they're praying for breakthroughs, open doors, this and that, financial increase. Many of the things we pray for, they are external manifestations. And if your internal system, your internal development, your internal growth is not in place, you can pray for 10 years and end up in frustration. And you begin to feel as if God was not faithful to you to answer your prayers. No, He is so faithful that He established laws and principles to live by. And if you disobey or you rebel against those laws and principles, it doesn't matter your emotional, spiritual activities, you are not going to see that incredible transformation and that testimony. So when we begin to talk about the external strategies and the external systems to put in place to be that influential woman, don't forget the things we have covered in the last 6 days, because they are the foundation. They are the core of who you can become as a voice of influence in your generation. Today, we are going to look at something interesting, which I am calling the strong woman who stands in the gap. The strong woman who stands in the gap. Basically, on the strategic path, we will be looking at how to build influence by preserving people, systems, and destinies as a woman. This is a very important concept, a very important revelation, and a very important body of wisdom to have and to understand as a woman at any age group, right? And there are a few older women that sometimes they'll reach out to me. It happens a lot, especially when I speak in a conference of, ladies conference or in a program like this. I always get a lot of, you know, older women reaching out to me and they're like, I wish I knew these things. I wish I knew these things when I was much younger. There was a time I was speaking in Accra, Ghana, and a woman came to me with a with another young lady with her. And she said, the things that you shared, I wish I knew when I was your age. But then she said something powerful. She said, but I am happy my daughter was with me in this conference. Right? So many a times, younger people don't know the blessings of getting access to some things that, they are getting access to. You need to be very, very grateful. And the only way you can manifest your gratefulness is to make sure that, because if you hear and what you hear does not transmit into transformation, into result, and into tangible feedback, your life will never remain the same. I want to read, as I was talking about this, let me just share this. Maybe it's going to challenge a young lady here. I want to read a message that my mother, my mother, the one who gave birth to me, right? I'm just emphasizing so you know who is coming from. She sent me a message. I'm just seeing it to my other number, so I didn't see it on time. But she sent a message and she said, more grace for all that you're doing. Many people are lost because of these that you are releasing. God bless you with more wisdom and knowledge. Right? When I read it, I was like, wow. I'm still digesting the message because of the person it came from, because of her age, right? And I'm trying to, sometimes when I read something, I'm trying to understand what was the psychology, what was the person thinking to sound like that, right? And that just say that there are things that when some older people, even men, I've had men who are 65, 70 years go through my certified programs, right? And one of their biggest regrets or challenge, which is not their fault, is that in their generation, when they were 25, 28, 30 years old, they were not exposed to certain revelations, knowledge, wisdom, ideas, insights, understanding, perspectives, solutions that can enable them to advance in destiny. You see that? So, for us younger people, and like I always say, if you're 50 and below, you're younger, because if you live right, live healthy, you still have 30 years ahead of you to do great things. You can still live up to 80 years and plus, right? And live good. So there are some things that when you know, see, I was talking to a young guy. Why am I rambling and I'm going straight to my topic? But this is important, right? I was talking to a young guy and I said, look, there are some things that when you hear, if you hear and go back and your life remains the same, your character the same, your routine the same, your habits the same, you are your own enemy. You are your own enemy. There are some things that many of us we have heard in the last 6 days or throughout this program, that if you remain the same, if you allow comfort, you allow certain things to still control your life and have a stronger voice over your life, you are your number one enemy. You see, over the years, I have spoken a lot across youth conferences in the church setting, both Baptist, Presbyterian, Catholic, Pentecostal systems, many youth conferences. And I always tell many young people that, especially in the Pentecostal setting, charismatic settings, where there's a lot of, there's a lot of strong belief that, and sometimes it's true, strong belief that they are not making it, they're not breaking through because there is a witch, there's a wizard, there's a demon somewhere. And I always tell them that the way some of you live your lives, if I live in your house with you for 10 days, for 15 days, I will already know that the witch you are trying to kill that is fighting your destiny, you are the one. And if you pray harder, you're going to die. Right? And because sometimes it is not supernatural forces stopping you from manifesting your biggest breakthroughs. Many a times, it is your number one enemy is your daily routine. Your number one enemy is your daily habits. Your number one enemy is how you look at life and certain beliefs that you have developed over the years. And if those things don't change, desire all you want, expect a change of story all you want, you are going to remain the same. Not because God is against your advancing, but because you are against your own rising in destiny. So, like I always tell those who are in the mentorship program with me, because they literally get to get exposure and hear some things from me that most people don't get to hear, because I get to have frequent meetings with them. So I always tell them that, look, there are some things that they should never do again because of what they constantly hear. There are some things that should be forbidden in their lives because of what they're constantly exposed to, because of how they're constantly being challenged. It's the same for all of us. The more you get exposed to certain things, you should develop this holy anger and tell yourself, because of this, I cannot do this anymore. Not anymore. And it takes a lot of commitment, a lot of self-control, self-discipline, sacrifice, the willingness to go through discomfort for a short period of time so you can start living the true life God ordained for you to live. All right? So I hope that this is not just one of those programs you attend and your life remains the same. That's not for you. That's not for you. So again, we're looking at the woman who stands in the gap, the strong woman who stands in the gap. And I believe if we understand this today, you are on your path to being a voice of influence for the rest of your life. In other words, we're looking at how to build your influence, how to become that influential voice as a woman by preserving people, systems, destinies, and what have you. In other words, these are some things I believe that if they are part and parcel of your journey here on earth, you are going to become an influential voice because you're going to become indispensable in your generation. Our key text for this summit has been Proverbs chapter 31, verse 31 as a whole, but today we are focusing on verse 8 and verse 9. Proverbs 31, verse 8 and verse 9. The Bible says, open your mouth for the speechless in the cause of all who are appointed to die. Open your mouth, that's verse 9. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and the needy. So, Proverbs 31, verse 8 and 9, these are part of verses or scriptures which records the instructions of King Lemuel's mother to her son Lemuel. So she was communicating what you can call high level instructions that are very important for him to be a person of influence in his nation and in his generation. And when you read that particular scripture, it said, open your mouth for the speechless in the cause of all who are appointed to die. Now, there is a very important revelation there, which is if you are going to be a woman of influence, if you're going to be a person of influence, one of the things that you need to get right, and many a times you don't get this right the first time. Sometimes you can take 5 years, 10 years of your life, and the more you're doing the things you're doing, the more you gain exposure. And you can begin to identify what I am going to talk about. So to be a woman of influence, to be a person of influence, one of the most important things that you can do is to identify a group of people, is to identify an industry, is to identify a segment in the society, people that you're going to design solutions, ideas, products for them in order to prevent them from dying. And that dying there is a metaphor. Because that mother said, open your mouth for the speechless in the cause of all who are appointed to die. For example, there are a good number of you here that you're passionate about marital counseling, marital coaching, and all of that, right? For you, those appointed to die here could be, for example, single ladies who are getting married the wrong way, and instead of enjoying marriage, they're enduring marriage. And because of ignorance, they're getting into pathways of life that they're appointed to die. Another set of people is young couples getting divorced. Those are people appointed to die, and you have that burden to begin to coach and provide counseling to those young couples, right? So if you are going to be a person of influence, because there is no human being who can influence the entire world, none. Your influence is for a particular set of people. Your purpose, your giftings, your talents are for a particular set of people. And if you are somebody that you don't know who you are sent to stop them from dying, to stop them from failing, you are going to find it difficult to stand out and be a voice of influence. It's very important. So King Lemuel's mother was telling him, look, you have to open your mouth for the speechless, for those who are confused, for the ignorant, for those who are lost in life. Whatever path in life you are called to impact. And you must open your mouth in the cause of all who are appointed to die. There are people who are, because you are not living your destiny right now, there are people who are about to die right now because you are not living your destiny. And again, remember, dying is a metaphor also. There is somebody here that maybe your passion is for the young people, and you have not started organizing programs in your community right now that can impact those young people. And because of your either laziness or fear or timidity, there is a young guy right now about to get into drugs because they think that is the right way to live. You can grow up in a community where if you are not conditioned right, because of what you grew up seeing everybody doing, you think that is the way of life. There are people who believe that growing up and drinking alcohol is normal. I mean, it's part of life. If you are not drinking it, you are the one who is stupid. What created that stronghold is what they grew up seeing, which is culturally acceptable around their lives. So that young man is on the path of dying because you are not living your destiny. You're not living your purpose. So if you're going to be an influential woman, you need to start seeking and pursuing clearly, who am I appointed to? It's a very important question to start seeking the answers. And like I said, many a times, this is something that it can take some people 5 years to finally arrive at. But the only way you can arrive at is to start where you are. For example, personally for me, the current things I teach now and the current people I'm targeting to serve an impact, they are not the people I'm targeting I used to target, right? You see, my first ever public speaking presentation, my first ever opportunity I had to speak in public to people, it was a small youth gathering, and I spoke on time management. So at the beginning of my training and speaking career, I was speaking a lot to young people, a lot to young people. And at that time, I thought that that was my target audience. But really, the more I began to grow in the craft, grow in what God ordained me to do, I began to get better exposure, and I was learning the perfect people I was called to influence and to serve with the giftings and the talents that God has given me. So if you are sitting and saying, I don't know what to do, I don't know who to impact, you will never come to it. You only get revelation is progressive. There are some things about your purpose that you will not enter until you start where you are. That's why if David was waiting to ever kill a Goliath, he would have never in his life killed a Goliath. David must start by taking care of the sheep. And the more he's doing that, the more his revelation about himself, about his purpose, about what God has entrusted to him, the more that revelation is being revealed. So if you are listening to me as a woman, and there are things that God laid in your heart to start doing, and you have not started in your small way, you are disqualifying yourself from what God has ordained you to actually ever do. You see that? Because, listen to me carefully, you only become influential by standing for and advancing an agenda for a group of people. Let me say it again. You only become influential by standing for something and advancing an agenda for a group of people. So if you are listening to me and there's a strong desire in you to be a more influential lady, to live life beyond where you are right now, if you don't have something you're standing for and you don't have an agenda you're advancing for a group of people in the society, you are already disqualifying yourself from being a voice of influence. You see that? It's very important. There are some of you right now, you already know clearly the group of people you are supposed to advance an agenda for. You already know very clearly. But your problem, you have not started because of fear. If that's you, type and repent. If you have not started because of fear, you are responsible for procrastinating your own influence, your own open doors, your own breakthroughs. There are some people that you don't yet know and you're waiting for when you're going to know perfectly. The secret is start with who any human being you can find. That's the secret. When you start serving any human being you can find, in the process, you will start refining your perfect people, your perfect agenda. It's very important. Okay? Because sustained influence is built by clearly standing for a defined set of people. Let me say it again. If you're going to sustain your influence and keep on growing in that influence, your major secret is to make sure that you are standing, you identify clearly a set of people in the society and begin to serve them. And if you cannot identify clearly, start with any human being that is around you who may likely need what you carry. As you start in that process, because God has designed this life in a way that you only gain clarity in the process. It's like driving. When you're driving, you don't see the entire route. No, you don't see it. The more you drive, you begin to see the route that you're supposed to follow. It's very important. And one important thing that you need to begin to do in that context also is to start articulating the risk or the problems that they are facing, because that is what gives you influence. When you identify, oh, this is the risk that they are facing, this is the problem they are facing, and then you begin to advance solutions that can preserve them, that can help them to live the fullness of their lives without failing in life. And in the process of that, you need to remain very flexible. You need to remain flexible enough to keep on evolving. Why? Because the group you are called to serve, they're changing also. They're changing. For example, I have a good number of mentees that when we came into contact, they were not doing anything per se. And there are some of them right now that after 5 years, they run multi-million businesses. So if I'm going to keep serving them, I need to keep evolving because they are evolving also. That's why you cannot be a person of influence if you are not married to capacity building. You cannot be that. Because the people that you're influencing, the people you're impacting, they are evolving. They are becoming better and better. And if you are not becoming better and better, they're going to leave you and find somebody else who can be able to help them go to the next level in their destiny. But as you identify the target group or the set of people, one thing you must be good at doing is articulate, understand the risk they are facing, understand the problems they are facing, and begin to design, create, conceptualize solutions that can solve their problems. Because when we go back to that Proverbs 31, verse 8 to 9, it says, open your mouth for the speechless in the cause of all who are appointed to die. They are at risk. They have a problem. So open your mouth, which carries a solution, and stop them from dying. You see, so somebody said this person is a Christian leadership expert, and he said a very profound statement, very powerful statement. This person said, righteous leadership uses authority and influence to serve people. Righteous leadership uses authority and influence to serve people. And coincidentally, everybody is in a leadership position. Some people, bigger positions. Some people, very small. But anywhere you are, you have a form of authority and influence that God has given you. And if you begin to use that authority and that influence to serve people, you begin to open yourself up to more entrustment by God to do more for his people. You see that? Because you are not going to be consistent in being a voice if you are not consistent in using the current voice, the current ideas that you have to serve people. You see, personally for me, the same way I teach, the same way I train now, the same way I speak now, the same way I communicate ideas, and the same level of understanding and insight and wisdom, I did not have it 5 years ago. I did not have it 10 years ago. And being a Christian, there are some things I know that they come by entrustment. They come when you align yourself with the law of faithfulness. So there are depths of revelations, there are depths of divine wisdom that I know that God only begins to reveal to me the more I am stewarding what He has given to me by making sure I am using it to serve people. You see, people don't understand the role of stewardship, the role of faithfulness. If you are going to experience multiplication and progress in whatever you're doing, if you break the law of faithfulness, if you break the law of being a good steward where you are, there are some things you can never handle. There are some things you can never handle. Because even in normal corporate organizations, certain promotions only come to you if you are faithful where you are, if you are a good steward where you are. Corporate organizations are borrowing a spiritual law to use. You see, and when you read that Proverbs 31, verse 8 to 9, one major thing it is communicating to you and I is the responsible use of power and influence on behalf of the defenseless. And these defenseless do not only mean poor people. This defenseless can just be somebody who lacks ideas and you have the idea. Do you know lack of idea can make you defenseless? Lack of ideas can make you defenseless, can make you a failure. You can have money and a lack of idea can make you hopeless. You see that? So there are many of us listening to me as ladies. Your own power God has given you is wisdom and ideas to help a particular group of people in a society because power is not just you sitting in a big chair. No, there are certain levels of ideas and knowledge and information that you have is power. There's something known as expertise power, information power. There are some of you listening to me, there are diverse things that you can do, but you are not seeing those things as power. And if you start seeing those things as power, you will start using them responsibly on behalf of a defenseless person in your target community. And that is why I always say that influence is the downstream of relevance. In other words, influence is the consequence, influence is the outcome of being a relevant person. Why? Because if you see a person, if you see a woman that people are yielding their authority to, people are submitting themselves to, one thing you're going to find is that the presence of that woman solves the problem. People don't give authority to someone because the person is beautiful or the person speaks loud. No. One major thing that makes people to yield their authority to you, to submit to you, is that your presence can solve a problem that matters to them. So, what am I saying? As a woman listening to me, as a young lady listening to me, when you're thinking, when your insights, when your ideas, when your knowledge, when your solutions can directly address a real and a current need, a current problem in the lives of people, whether men or women, influence will naturally begin to follow you, naturally. And this is why I said earlier on that if you know what to do to a particular group of people and you are allowing timidity, you are allowing fear to hold you back, to stop you, or you are allowing too much comfort to limit you, you are procrastinating your own breakthrough. You are procrastinating your own prosperity. Because if there's one thing about influence is that when you start becoming influential, impact, income begins to follow you. So this mother in Proverbs 31 verse 8 says, open your mouth for the speechless in the cause of all who are appointed to die. In other words, let your thinking, let your insights, let your solutions, let your ideas begin to directly address the real and the current need of the people you're called to serve. And when you begin to do that, influence will begin to follow you. And that's why your influence in this generation, your influence in your generation, in the society, in the country where you live, your influence is measured by how many destinies are being impacted because you showed up as a woman. And when I say showed up, it means showing up with wisdom, with ideas, with solutions, with a way out. Don't only show up dressing well, having good makeup, and so what? How will that influence the life of somebody? But as a woman, your influence is measured by how many destinies can remain alive, how many destinies can be sustained, how many marriages, how many young girls, young men, I don't know who you're called to serve, but your influence is measured by how many of those destinies remain alive, remain vibrant because you showed up with your wisdom. You showed up with your solutions, whether products or services, whether an NGO or a business, whether a school or whatever, or a ministry, it doesn't matter. But what are you showing up with? It's very important because you constantly become influential as a woman when people believe that without this solution that you have, something important in their life will go wrong. There is a way that you can run a WhatsApp group as a woman, a WhatsApp group with young girls. There is a way you can run it. And the day WhatsApp is down, many young girls can feel restless. They can feel so disappointed with the internet because what you deliver through that WhatsApp group is so important to them that they know without this WhatsApp group, my life is going to go wrong. But you are sitting and you are minimizing that step that you can take and change the life of one young girl, one young man. Because you only start becoming influential when, on a daily basis, more people begin to believe in what you do. They begin to have this understanding that without this solution, without this initiative, without this group, without this NGO, without this conference, without this event, whatever you are led to do, they begin to have that conviction because of the impact of what you do. Without this solution, without this platform, something important in my life will go wrong. So they know that the more they consume you, the more they consume your ideas or what you're doing, the more they are being refined for purpose manifestation and for destiny. One thing I would like to achieve in this particular edition of the program is let anybody who is procrastinating anything go and start today. Go and start imperfect. Go and start incomplete. Go and start without adequate resources. Go and start today. Go and start. Anybody who is waiting for perfect seasons, perfect resources, perfect competence, perfect knowledge, you will never start. And you will constantly procrastinate your biggest breakthroughs. Personally, for me, I always wonder, what if I procrastinated not to start? Just what if? Because I can tell you many mistakes I did in the first few years. I'm still making mistakes today. There's no perfect human being. But when you're starting at the beginning, there's no roadmap, there's no blueprint, there's nobody that is holding your hand in your immediate community. The things I started doing in Kumbu at the time, I was literally among the first to ever do something like that. In 2011 and 12, personal development seminars were not common. Organizing a seminar for young people was not common. It was not. So it is not as if there was somebody around me who was doing the same thing every week or every month that I could learn from. You see, so I did many mistakes, lack of resources, but thank God that I kept on going. So if you're going to be a woman who can stand in the gap, you're going to be a woman that can influence people, systems, and nations, you need to begin to put all of this in context. It's very important. And that's why in one of the days I said, a woman of influence does not ask, where can I be seen? If you're listening to me and you still have this consciousness of you want to be seen, you want people to see you, you are looking for popularity and not influence. Go and be a comedian. Go and be an actor. Go and be something else. A woman of influence does not ask, what can I do to be seen? That is for those who are looking to be popular on social media. That's not for you. A woman who understands influence asks the question, why is this problem persistent in my society? And how do I stop it? Then you're on the path of influence. Why is this problem persistent in my town, in my country, in my generation? You begin to carry out research. In the process, you're also asking a second question. How do I stop this persistent problem? Now, you are on the path of influence. That is why, listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully. True influence always begins with two things combined: a burden and developing the competence to solve that burden. I'm telling you, a woman who wants to be seen will never have a burden and will never pay the price to develop competence. There are many of you ladies listening to me. There are burdens in the society. There are burdens in your immediate town and country you have seen. But the challenge is you are not becoming the woman to stand in the gap. That's the topic for today. Becoming the woman to stand in the gap. Let me show you again. That's the goal for today. Become the strong woman who stands in the gap. And how do we stand in the gap? By building ideas that can preserve people, systems, and destinies. Two things: burden and the competence to solve that burden. Ambitions will never make you influential. At best, it can make you popular. And guess what? Popularity lasts for a very short period of time. Influence lasts longer than popularity. You dress well, you snap a good picture, you post on social media, maximum 6 hours. The comments they like, oh, wow, like sirens. After that, you need to post another nice picture to have those kind of comments. That is popularity. So you're always doing things on a desperate level to be seen. An influential person does not do anything on a desperate level to be seen. No, they focus on developing competence to solve burdens in the society, and influence runs after them. Develop the competence, find a burden, stand in the gap of that burden, develop the competence to preserve the people, the systems, and the destinies around that particular gap. And you will be a voice that nobody can ignore in your generation. Type in the chat box, I am that strong woman. I am that strong woman. Type in the chat box, I am that strong woman. Because of what you're learning, you're paying the price to begin to develop the capacity to be that strong woman. So what is the burden? Develop the capacity to be that strong woman. It will change so much in your destiny. It will make you an incredible human being. Now, I want to share with you what I'm calling the 5 non-negotiables. The 5 non-negotiables. In other words, influence is built. You can only build influence on these 5 non-negotiables. There are other ideas you can add to this, but when I studied this thing about influence and leadership and all of that, these are important 5 non-negotiables that if they are in your life, you are going to be that woman. That's why I'm giving you these 5 non-negotiables. So what I'm saying is, I am about to share with you 5 non-negotiable things that if you have them in your life or you start doing them, you are going to be that strong woman who stands in the gap and end up being a voice in your generation. Number 1 non-negotiable. Influence follows interpreted pain. Influence follows interpreted pain. If you want to be a strong woman who can preserve people's systems and destinies, you have when you identify pain in a society, you identify a burden, something that hurts you, and you want to do something about. Knowing about that pain is not enough. A woman of influence goes a step further and interprets that pain. You interpret that pain. The masses feel pain, but it is the responsibility of leaders and women with the right mindset to diagnose the pain. You're like a doctor, you're like a nurse. People come to you and they have pain. And if you're going to be a good nurse, a good doctor, your job is to interpret their pain. They have the pain, but they don't know what is causing the pain and how to end the pain. What makes you a voice of influence is you interpret the pain. And that's why you ask questions and do research. Right? My mama used to be a nurse. When you have small stomach ache and all of that, she will question you and say, if you don't know the right medication to give you, you cannot influence something if you don't interpret the pain. So, for example, there are many of you here that what you're passionate about, you cannot create your highest level of impact if you don't get into advocacy and policy. Start thinking of, okay, how can I begin to do work that can cause the parliament to change laws, the Senate to change laws, the government to change laws. Now, if you're going to create influence at that level, one thing you must be good at doing is you interpret the pain and you translate the potential solutions into policy. For another person listening to me, when you interpret that pain, you need to translate your findings into a structure that can solve that pain. The structure can be as simple as you start organizing weekly meetings after church service to train a particular group of women on a particular topic. So having it once a week on a consistent basis, that is structure. You start from there and then you can improve. And the purpose of interpreting the pain is because if you're going to be a woman of influence to any group of people, until you can explain why a group is failing, they're not going to trust you and you cannot influence them. That's why a good doctor, a good medical person will tell you they're feeling pain. You don't know the cause. When they do their diagnosis, they'll tell you, okay, this is caused by this and this and this. And to solve this, we're going to do this and this and this with you or for you, and all of that. So for those of you ladies that you have burdens and ideas, have you spent time to interpret the pain and the problem? Have you read research papers? Have you gone to the field to ask the people questions to understand what they're going through? That is how influence is sustained. Number two, the second non-negotiable. People do not follow passion. People follow preservation. People follow what is going to preserve them. People do not follow passion. That's why I don't like to talk a lot about passion, because passion is not enough. And there are many passionate people doing nothing with their passion. So, the second non-negotiable is to have the understanding that people do not follow your passion. Even for you, your passion does not pay bills. Do you know that being passionate will never pay your bills, will never make you money? It is converted passion into relatable ideas, understandable ideas, marketable ideas that can pay your bills. So people do not follow your passion. No, people follow what you do with your passion that preserves them. You see, I was reading a document, a very powerful document. It was a research paper. And that research paper was around what they call behavioral economics and leadership psychology. Very interesting topics to study around behavioral economics and leadership psychology. And that paper revealed that research consistently shows that human beings mobilize faster around loss prevention instead of anything that will help you gain. In other words, if you create a program and the purpose of the program is to help people to prevent them from losing something, that research says that human beings mobilize faster around loss prevention ideas. For example, if let's say you're a lady here and you're passionate about single women or single girls who want to get married, if that's you, type me in the chat box. Type me in the chat box. Is there anybody here who is passionate about single ladies and single men and all of that? Nobody? All right. I see Mrs. Toko. All right. Now, do you know if you organize a conference and the title of the conference is How to Marry Right or How to Find a Right Partner, many people are not going to attend. You know why? Because any lady dating at that time, they are going to believe that their current boyfriend is the perfect guy for them. Do you know that? But if you reverse the topic and create a conference and say how to never end up with the wrong guy, the population that will run after that event, right? Why? Because human beings mobilize faster around loss prevention. They were like, okay, I'm not sure if my current boyfriend is the wrong guy or the right guy. Let me go and find out. Right? So if you want to have more people to run after some of your events, try to create programs that or title that can show them that if they attend your program, they are going to prevent losses in their lives. It is proven research. So instead of, let's say you're passionate about married couples, you don't create a program around how to have a blissful marriage. Many couples are going to imagine my current marriage is blissful, right? But if you organize a conference and you tag how to prevent your husband from losing interest in you, right? Every married woman will attend that conference because they were thinking, okay, right now he may have interest in me. What if after 2 years he loses interest? Because the human mind is trained to prevent loss at all costs. So even a woman who has a happy marriage will attend, and a woman who is struggling with marriage will attend. That's why I said your second non-negotiable in being a woman who can stand in the gap is to understand that people do not follow your passion. People follow preservation. What are you doing that can preserve them, that can stop them from experiencing a loss? It's a powerful secret. You see, because in that Proverbs 31, verse 8, the Bible says, open your mouth for the speechless in the cause of all who are appointed to die, those who are appointed to lose something in life. Open your mouth and judge righteously, verse 9, and plead the cause of the poor and the needy. They are losing something in life. So stop moving around and telling, oh, I am passionate about this and that and that. Your passion means nothing to anybody, trust me. That's why many a times I will hardly ask, what is your passion? Likely I will ask, what are you solving? What is the burden? What is the pain? You see that. Number three, the third non-negotiable is linked to number two a bit, but I wanted to talk about it separately. Number three is authority or influence is granted to those who reduce existential risk. It's a bit linked to number two, but I'll explain the difference. Authority and influence is granted to a woman who reduces existential risk. I hope you're writing down this point, because the purpose of these points is you take it back in your private time and you begin to use these points and build strategy for your life and what you do. This is how I study. This is how I read books. This is how I listen to programs. When I'm listening, I just bought my new journal today. When I'm listening to something, I am not listening to hear good ideas. No, I am listening to, okay, this, what new thing can I build? Can I create? Can I solve to keep doing what I do better? All right. So authority is granted to those who reduce existential risk. Now, in business, even in politics, in governance, there is something known as existential risk. Existential risk is a potential event or a potential outcome that threatens the destruction of potential, or the destruction of a country, or the destruction of the world. For example, climate change is actually categorized under existential risk. That means if that risk is not addressed, it has the potential of destroying the world. There are some wars that, or some conflicts that are classified under existential risk. If they are not resolved, that country can plunge into war and end up in destructions, right? So same for us human beings, we have existential risk. There are some people that their own existential risk is poverty. If they continue in the way they're living their lives, they're going to end up poor at an old age. That's existential risk. There is a man or a woman right now that if they continue the way they are behaving in their marriage, they are going to lose that marriage. That's existential risk, right? So if you study industries and you study voices of influence, thought leaders, power movers, in every industry, those who gain power, listen to me, those who gain power are those who know what to do that can lower uncertainty or existential risk. What am I saying? If you're a woman, let's say there's a woman here that from your experience of being married and from reading books and carrying out research, you have gathered wisdom. I mean, practical, high level germs of wisdom that if any couple practices, they can never fail in their marriage. You, if you begin to practice what you have gathered, you are a woman who will constantly begin to grow in power and influence. in that particular industry because you have something that can lower uncertainty and existential risk. And that's why this existential risk is broken across it. For some people, it's economic risk. For some people, it is operational risk. It is relationship risk and whatever. So what am I saying? When you begin to train, and that's one thing I challenge myself to do on a daily basis. I am on a mission of that. Every day I am building capacity. I don't want to solve normal problems. That's why, trust me, when I do my events and I'm speaking, I always pay the price to study, to research, to think deeply, to make sure that what I'm going to teach, a speaker, a trainer who doesn't do his or her work, you cannot teach at my level. It's intentions, it's consciousness. If you're lazy, we cannot compete. That's my aim. So you're consistently paying the price that when you develop ideas, you develop solutions. These ideas and these solutions and these insights can consistently keep people, keep organizations, keep nations, keep systems from collapsing, from failing. Influence becomes inevitable in your life. Let me say it again. When your ideas, when your insights, when your wisdom, when your solutions, when your services, when your products can keep people from failing, can keep organizations from collapsing, can keep even nations and systems from collapsing, influence becomes inevitable. Why? Because you cannot solve a problem that prevents existential risk and not become influential. So, in that thing you want to do as a woman, I want to challenge you. Identify the biggest risk that anybody in that sector is afraid of. Let's try this. Type in the chat box. Based on the people you want to impact or based on the people you want to serve, what is their number one risk they want to avoid till they die? Type in the chat box. So that is very important to actually find. Number 4, what is the fourth non-negotiable that should be in your life? Always know that agenda precedes access. Agenda precedes access. What does that mean? If you're going to be a woman of influence, you must have an agenda you're running with in this life. Like what many of you have written as well, existential risk that you want to prevent in the lives of your target people, that is your agenda. Listen to me carefully. You will never be invited into rooms because of your potentials. No. You will only be invited into rooms that matter because of the agenda that you represent and because of the value that you bring. Because your influence consistently grows when your agenda becomes indispensable either to a group of people, to a nation, or to an industry. For example, how did I get into the good books of many embassies? Right, in Cameroon. Like I said, by God's grace, traveled close to 18 countries plus, and I have never been refused a visa. And one of the things that happened was that before I started having opportunity to travel to different countries, I was already doing work with many embassies. So I was already a familiar face with many ambassadors and high commissioners and all of that. Even some ambassadors that I did not do work in with their embassies because in the diplomatic community, let's say when the US embassy or the Canadian High Commission is having an event, they always invite sister embassies to participate. So if you do any presentation, you do any program, anything there, they will easily notice you and things like that. So I had my agenda, right? And before that, one thing that the Holy Spirit taught me to do, because I know it was Him because it came in a place of prayer, and because I don't think I was that intelligent at that time to know what to do. But what the idea that came to mind was that I decided that every two months, I would email. So I went to on the internet and I searched for emails of all the embassies that were in Cameroon, those I could find, those I could not find. And then every 2 months, every 3 months, I will send a report of the work I am doing with young people and entrepreneurs. And some of them will reply, some will not. And when some of them reply, some will be like, why are you sending this to us? I said, no, no, I just wanted to inform you guys and update you guys on what I'm doing. As simple as that. And that's how I started gaining access to embassies. Nobody endorsed me. Nobody went and said, this guy's good, right? My agenda put me in those rooms. Of course, not my agenda alone. As somebody who believes in the favor of God, when you begin to make some, like I always say, there are many Christians that the favor of God is stranded over their lives. There are some things that if you don't start doing, you will never see favor speak for you. But you see, it was agenda that went ahead of me that gave me access. That's why I said agenda precedes access. You want to start entering some rooms, find an agenda. Let your name be known for being an advocate of this and that. Before you know it, some kinds of organization will start calling for you because they will have programs, they will have events, they will have their own agendas that will make them to look for experts like you who are running the same agenda. Then they will look for you. So, what is your agenda? That's why I say passion is not enough. Convert that passion into a life agenda, into a life mission. Package it. Know how to communicate. If I ask you, Mespa, Olive, Shavolin, what is your life agenda as a woman of influence? How does that agenda relate to the agenda of the United Nations, the agenda of let's say Cameroon government 2035, whatever that they're doing, right? But if let me tell you, if you are going to be a woman of influence, you must have an agenda you're pursuing in this life. A woman with no agenda, there are some rooms you will never enter. See, this is high level things that they teach just some people at the very high level. Find an agenda, document it, research about it, read about it, craft solutions, ideas around it. Start taking steps towards that agenda. You'll be amazed at how that agenda can give you access. You are not doing anything and you want somebody to endorse you, to recommend you, to invite you. Why? Why? Why should they do that? Why should they do that? Write in the chat box, I am a woman with an agenda. I am a woman with an agenda. This is how to stand in the gap as a strong woman. It's how to stand in the gap as a strong woman. Have an agenda you're running with. Even if you have a job right now, what is your side agenda? What is the agenda that you can begin to even do on Saturdays, on Sundays even? You can even start in your local church. The only you and God knows that this is my agenda on earth. The same thing I'm doing today is my agenda started 15 years ago. The difference is it is evolving. I am evolving. I am growing. It is growing. The world is changing, but the core is the same. The core is the same. Find an agenda and begin to run with it. It will change your destiny forever. It is one of the things that will stop you from living hand to mouth. I'm telling you, agendas are so powerful. Agendas are so powerful. I remember as a much younger guy, I remember the first time, I think the program was a US embassy program or something. And they invited me as a panelist expert or something. And then at the end, they didn't tell me they were going to pay me. So me, I knew I was going to volunteer. And at the end, they gave me some money or the haba. At that time, I had big money. That was money that my salary in the job I had, that money was like, because at the early days, any money I made, I was comparing to my salary, right? So it was like my 6 month salary in 1 hour of doing something, right? Agenda is so powerful. See, it doesn't matter how you're struggling. It doesn't matter. There's a lady here that you can just make up your mind. My agenda is that in my lifetime, this rapid divorce happening among young couples, my agenda is that I'm going to contribute a major quota in stopping this nonsense. It can become your agenda. You begin to design ideas, policies, write books, write papers, do videos. That's your agenda. Before you know it, Ministry of Women Empowerment begin to invite you. Before you know it, different high-profile organizations begin to run after you. Why? Because your agenda is colliding with their agenda. It's a lady here. Your agenda could be, I am tired of seeing women getting married, broke with no career, and their men are maltreating them. My agenda for the rest of my life is that any woman who comes in contact with me, before they settle down, they'll have a clear career vision, competent. If they're running a business, they will have the right business skills and there'll be a plan to start their businesses. And your agenda is no woman will suffer again from domestic violence because they got married without a career, without a job, without a business. You begin to create programs around that. Before you know it, Ministry of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise, Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of this and that begins to run after you. Embassies that run economic programs begin to run after you, begin to sponsor you to go to different countries to do this and do that because your agenda is colliding with their agenda. A woman without an agenda is a powerless, influential-less woman. If I thought that's English, it's communication. Right? Find your agenda. If you're going to be a woman who can stand in the gap, find an agenda and run with it. Even if you have a job right now, let your agenda become your side hustle. You'll be surprised that if you stay consistent with it, in less than 1 year, in 2 years, that agenda can start paying you a better salary and start making you to travel nations. Become a woman with an agenda. It will change your life forever. Number 5, the fit as I'll share with you 5 non-negotiables that must be in your life if you will be a woman who can stand in the gap as a voice of influence. Number 5, silence is a leadership failure. Silence is a leadership failure. I am repeating for those of you in the back who are afraid to look at the camera, who are afraid to stand and talk before 2 or 3 people. If they ask you to talk now like this on this call, you will pray for the internet to go off. If that's you, type I relate. There are some women right now on this call. If I ask you now to say something for 2 minutes, you will start asking, Lord, make sure the internet is not working right now. Right? You will pray for the ground to open and swallow you Your number one fear in this life is not a snake. Your number one fear in this life is not a boyfriend who can break your heart. Your number one fear, your number one fear is to talk where two or three are gathered. If that's you type, I relate. Don't be shy. Some can even be shy of typing in the chat box. You need to repent from that. Oh. Silence is leadership failure. Silence is failure when it comes to influence. You need to fight that. Let me tell you something. People don't know this, but it's the truth. I was like that. Oh. My classmates can tell you. I never used to raise my hand to answer any question. I better kneel down. In our school, we had one particular teacher that if you don't answer his question, you said you go and kneel. I would prefer to kneel down, oh, and sometimes we kneel down and carry the drinking water pocket, right? The drinking water bucket. I used to be scared to talk in class, but at the same time, I was noisy. The kind of guy that disturbs people at the back or in the middle of the class, but to stand up and talk is the problem, right? Yeah. So I was always kneeling down for two reasons. Either I will not respond, if I know the question, the answer, I will not respond. Or number two, will be disturbing people around, doing things at the back and things like that. Right? So, but to stand up and talk, God forbid, it will not happen though. You better do your worst than to see me talk. Right? So there are many people like that. So silence is a leadership failure. You are if you allow mistakes, fear of making mistakes, pronouncing words wrongly or grammatical errors, anything that you're standing upon, not to be out there, not to begin to express your ideas through communication publicly, you are directly and indirectly responsible for silencing your own failure. And you see, it was possible that in the older generation, let's say in the days of my mother, when she was 25 years old, 30 years old, in the days of your parents, it was possible to survive, grow old, and live well, and even die without being out there. In our generation, the more days go by, anybody who does not have a system to be out there, you will always end up being a slave and a follower. Because we are in the content generation. We are in the perception generation. We are in the branding generation. We are in the thought leadership generation. We are in the influence generation. That's what we are. That's why there are couples now on social media that their full-time job is creating funny content about their marriage, what they do with their kids, and all of that. And they're cashing up big time. What is giving them money is the boldness to step out and not be silent, to tell their story in the way they can. And they're making millions every month, especially those who are doing that from European countries and, of course, North America. It favors them more. Right? The only thing that is giving them money is they're utilizing platform and boldness of not being silent to be out there. There are many people listening to me. You are so good at what you do. You are so incredible at what you do. The one thing missing from your life is that you are not out there. That is what is keeping you either limited, either broke, or non-existent. You are not out there. Silence is destroying your destiny and you don't know about it. When you read that Proverbs 31, verse 8 and 9, open your mouth is in the two verses. Verse 8, open your mouth. Verse 9, open your mouth. Let me tell you, in the dispensation we are in, being neutral, being silent in this generation will negatively affect you or keep you small in ways you can never imagine. Listen to me, ladies. Listen to me. Influence requires articulation. Whatever is holding you back, pay the price and conquer it all. Treat it like a demon. I'm telling you. Whatever is holding you back from being out there, treat it like a demonic force fighting your destiny. Influence requires articulation. Start where you are. Make the mistakes. I was talking somewhere on different platforms, right? I've been invited on big platforms in my life so far, and more are coming. Amen. Right? And I said, I, I said, I don't know what the comment was. And I started the session by saying, I said, number one, I said, because of where I come from and because of how much I love my local language and my tribe, the too much speaking of my local language has affected how I pronounce my words. And I said, if you're going to listen to what I'm saying very well, you have to pay attention so your life can change. It was in a different country. So I ended by saying, I know that as a result of where I'm coming from, my pronunciation of some words may not be like your own. So you paid me to be here. So pay attention to listen to what I'm saying. And they were laughing, right? So, but that does not stop me. And so what? And so what? Just pay the price and keep on growing in your competence. Your accent does not matter if you carry what they need. As simple as that. At least I'm a testimony of that. Your accent does not matter. There's no perfect human being. Even Barack Obama, who is one of the most incredible speakers on earth, he still makes mistakes when he talks. That's somebody who's one of the highest paid speakers. He's paid $100,000 per hour when he speaks. If you invite Obama to speak on your event, it's a minimum $100,000 for 1 hour to speak on your event, on your platform. But he still makes mistakes. I don't know what excuse you're using right now to stay silent, not to open your mouth. Proverbs 31, verse 8 and verse 9. Open your mouth. Verse 9. Open your mouth. If I'm speaking to you, those particular people that wrote I relate, type in the chat box, I am opening my mouth. Open your mouth. Because there is a dimension of influence that you can only begin to walk in if what you say can alter reality. What you say can create transformation. What you say can change somebody's life. I'm thinking of something that's making me to laugh. There was a lady I was talking to, and she was so afraid of uh, uh, speaking in public. And I said, I still don't understand why a beautiful girl like you should be afraid of speaking in public. And I found this, I don't know what other girls are going to do. Right? But I was just challenging her. I said, look, you need to step up. You have no excuse. You're fluent, you're beautiful, you have the ideas. What can possibly go wrong? Shut the hell up and go start talking. You have no excuse. No human being has any excuse. The point is, fear is louder in your head than your destiny. That's a challenge. There are many people that you have allowed fear to be louder than where you're going to. And that's a very sad thing. Listen to me. Listen to me. There are some of you listening to me right now that because of what has been committed to you by God, if you do not open your mouth, you are going to remain where you are for so long. What I'm saying is there are some people that you are calling. Opening your mouth is an integral part of your destiny. Opening your mouth is like 80% part of your destiny. There are people like that. There are some people that the biggest part of their destiny manifestation is linked to them opening their mouth. There are some people, their biggest part is just to think very well, articulate, and maybe they require just 20% of talking. But there are some of you listening to me, you know that you have been stuck for 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, because you know that the biggest part of your life, of your destiny is tied to opening your mouth. And for some people, the real reason why they are not opening their mouth is because they don't have the substance to communicate. Which is very true. Because you cannot open your mouth authoritatively without having the substance to communicate. Right? Sometimes when I want to, let's just speak for 2 hours, like the topic for today, I understood that it was very important. I perfected my ideas when I was on call with my wife. I went to her that I was perfecting my ideas for today. Or was it tomorrow? And I know that I can only speak for 2 hours consistently if I have substance structured to deliver for 2 hours. So many people are afraid to go in public because they wonder, so what will I say? You know the answer to that question now. You know the answer to that question. You don't have anything to say because you have not been developing capacity. So the right question should be, or the right thing to say should be, oh, look at this opportunity. I cannot say anything that makes sense because I'm too lazy. That should be the right thing to say. And then you go repent and begin to do the right thing. Because if you're somebody who studies cycles, right? Cycles, or let's say communities. I like to sometimes just study the political community, business community, technology community, even being in ministry, religious communities, and all of that. Now, listen to me. In every community, in every circle, authority of speech. That means when you open your mouth and you talk, and your voice carries authority. Listen to me carefully. If you're going to be a woman of influence, you must know this and always remember this. In every leadership circle, whether politics, business, technology, religion, any healthcare, any leadership circle, authority of speech is a result of insight, credibility, clarity of thought, and demonstrated competence. Let me say it again. If you want to consistently grow in authority of speech, the kind of person that sometimes in a panel discussion, or they can just call you out of the blue. What do you have to say about this? We want to hear your thoughts before we proceed. That is authority of speech. If you want to carry authority of speech in your career, in your destiny, in your generation as a woman, know that authority of speech is a result of insight, credibility, thought clarity, and demonstrated competence. Being fluent does not give you authority of speech. It is what you carry plus being fluent that gives you that. You see? So, for example, let me put it this way. Going back to the existential risk, right? If your voice cannot prevent loss, listen to me. If your voice as a woman cannot prevent loss, if your voice as a woman cannot preserve a life, cannot preserve a destiny, cannot preserve an organization, or if your voice as a woman cannot redirect destinies or change outcomes, it is not yet a voice of influence. Because true influence begins for you and continues with you and I when our words carry substance. And that substance manifests in the form of wisdom, knowledge, insight, clarity of thought, demonstrated competence, and what have you. So, in that Proverbs 31, verse 8 and 9, it says, open your mouth. Open your mouth. It means you must have substance. It means King Lemuel. If you're going to remain a king, you're going to stay influential, you must open your mouth. In summary, quick steps and then we are done. In summary, so 5-step process to apply this principle of being a woman who can stand in the gap. All of these things I have said already. I just want to give you 5-step process so you can have a system, right? I like to just do that to make sure that people live with something. So 5-step process to apply to make sure that you are a woman who can stand in the gap and be a voice of influence. Number 1, identify a silent zone. In other words, identify the burden. Identify the burden. Where are people suffering? Where are they stuck? Identify the burden. Number 2, step 2, diagnose the root cause of the burden. Diagnose the root cause of the problem. Carry out research. Ask questions. What is the belief system that is causing this failure in this society? What is rewarding this dysfunction? I saw somebody talking about young girls not wanting to get pregnant and all of that. So why are very young girls getting into sexual promiscuity? What is the incentive? Study it. Is it because they come from poor families that makes them now to get into that kind of dysfunction? Is it because of bad parenting? Study the incentive that is rewarding that dysfunction of premarital sex. Study it. Because influence begins for you as a woman of influence when you can name the real problem accurately. Number 3, build what I like to call interpretive language. Build interpretive language. In other words, create a language that can interpret the problem better to the people and give them options. Let them start seeing that, oh, there is a better life to live than this. Because, for example, to be a good coach, I do a lot of coaching. To be a good coach, one thing you must be good at doing is listen to the person, then explain their problem to them better and tell them the suffering they're going through better than that. That is interpretive language. When you're able to interpret their experience very well. Anybody, any human being will trust another human being who can understand their problem very well and clearly interpret it. In other words, if you're going to be a person of influence, you must be able to explain the reality of the target audience better than they can. You know, for example, I have had this experience many times where somebody tells me their problem in coaching, then I start explaining to them the problem, and I start explaining the ripple effects of the problem. Then they start saying, that is exactly what is happening to me. You are right. Exactly, right? Because I'm using interpretive language. If you're going to be a person of influence, you must learn to study, understand, observe, and be able to explain the experience of somebody in a way they're like, are you living with me in my house? They begin to agree with you. That is exactly what is happening to me. Anytime anybody says that, when I tell them the price for the coaching is best, they hardly argue, right? Because they know that, oh, if this man can understand my problem like this, then he's going to solve the problem, right? You're going to be like Joseph. The way Joseph explained the dream of Pharaoh, Pharaoh was the one who said, there is nobody else again who can solve this problem except you. So whether you like it or not, you're going to become the prime minister now. All right. And that's why it's good to don't be surface level expert. Study, expose yourself, build capacity. It's very important. All right. Then number 4, design a preservation pathway. Design a preservation pathway. Design ideas, products, systems, services, insight, a program that can stop that problem, that can restore progress back to their life, that can sustain their progress. That's where impact begins to happen. There are some of you listening to me, you have not started anything, you know what to do, but you have been reluctant. Your next immediate step is your preservation pathway is go and create that WhatsApp group and begin to bring the people you want to impact together. Create a weekly structure, a monthly structure to impact them. Start from there. After 6 months, take it physical, do a local event, whatever you can do. Start from there. For somebody, just that book you have been procrastinating. You don't know that that book is a preservation pathway for somebody else to read. So design a preservation pathway. Number five, and we are done. Speak with strategic clarity. That Proverbs 31 verse 8 says, open your mouth. Speak with clarity. You must open your mouth, not with noise, but open your mouth with wisdom, with insight, with precision, with data. Your influence begins to grow, begins to consolidate when your voice can consistently move people from point A to point B, move people from confusion to order, move people from stagnation to action. Open your mouth. Stop being afraid. Some of you have been having ideas to start doing short videos and sharing on social media, but fear will not allow you. If that's you, type me in the chat box. These things, these ideas I have, this wisdom I have. Let me start doing 2 videos every week, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and begin to share. But you will not open your mouth and start doing it. You have the good phone, you have the internet. The only thing absent is the opened mouth. If that's you, type me in the chat box. Let me give you assignment. Go and do it. That's your assignment. Go and do it. Go and do it. Go and do it. Go and step up to it and start doing it. Go and do it. Step up to it. Step up to it. And your life will never be the same again. So go and be the woman who can stand in the gap. Go and be the woman who can preserve destinies, families, systems, organizations, even nations, because you're standing in the gap and you are opening your mouth.